What's up, fellow fishing fanatic? Today, I've got one lure and a very limited amount of time, and I'm looking to catch as many smallmouth as possible. The lure today is a soft body swim bait, and the location is northeastern Michigan. I don't get to fish these waters a lot. However, my in-laws have a cabin on this lake, which is how I got the boat. So I've fished here several times throughout the years, and I kind of have it figured out for this time of year, but I've only got about 2 hours to catch fish. So let's stop blabbing and let's make the most of it. All right, so while I'm headed to the spot, I'll tell you what I'm looking for today. On this lake, the rock piles are what hold most of the smallmouth. So I look for a rock pile in about 8 to 12 foot of water, and then I try to cover every single side of that rock pile once I've found it. Lucky for me, in this time crunch, I've got several rock piles located, so I'm not gonna have to search for a bunch of them, but it's still gonna take some time to really break them down and catch some fish. So my game plan is there's a couple of rock piles out here in front of us, and then there's a few on the other side of the lake. If these two don't work out, we're gonna run across on the other side of the lake and see if we can't get a bite over there before time runs out, and I've got to go to my other responsibilities. Really, dude? Well, you're gonna share it with me then, pal. You want to play these games. All right, so I had to move spots a little, well, it's a lot earlier than I thought. As I was trolling over there, somebody beat me to the spot. It is what it is. I think they could tell that I was going there. They didn't care, so they set up and started fishing. It's public water, what can I say? That's what happens. But this spot's free and clear, so I'm gonna drop the trolling motor in and get to fishing. So this water is incredibly clear. It's not what I'm used to seeing down south in Oklahoma, where, you know, I mean, 2 or 3 foot's pretty clear. This we're seeing 6 to 8 feet deep, and sometimes you can spot the fish. Obviously, they spotted you before you spot them, so they're high-tailing it away. But if you're seeing fish in an area, that's usually a good sign that, hey, I should fish this. I should just fish it a little more delicately and not go charging in, slow down, and try to really pick it apart. I'm starting to see some boulders on the bottom and stuff, just like what I'm hoping for. These calm conditions are killer though. I was hoping for at least a little bit of wind on this side, but man, there's just nothing today. So as I said, my in-laws have a cabin on this lake. So we come up, you know, once a year for about a week. We're here for a little bit longer than a week this year and just hang out and fish. My father-in-law is actually from this small town. He knows a few spots and he's fished this lake for a long time, helped me, you know, shorten my learning curve on it. But I've been coming up here for probably 6, 7, 8 years now, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's a incredible lake, and MLF has actually come and fished this in some of their shorter tournaments. Not one of their big tournaments, but it was still pretty cool. My father-in-law was pretty pumped to see them out here chasing smallmouth and, you know, seeing what they could haul in. I just caught a decent walleye, which I'll put on the screen here, the other day trolling. That's probably the biggest walleye that I've caught. So this lake's got a little bit of everything, a lot of fun to catch, and if you can find them when they're hungry like I did the other day, I mean, it's nothing to catch 5, 6 fish in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It's just crazy. But these sunny, clear, calm conditions kind of make fishing hard in, you know, July, late July at that. That ain't gonna stop me from trying. So let's talk a little bit about the swim bait here. I hadn't fished it much till I started coming up here, to be honest. And since I started fishing it, it's been a stinking game changer. You know, I'm a big power fisherman. I absolutely love pulling a spinner bait, a crankbait, you know, a MEP spinner, anything that I can just keep reeling. I love it. So when I discovered that, hey, I can do that with a soft body swim bait and get more bites when, you know, the crankbait isn't working. It's a lot more subtle than a crankbait and a spinnerbait. And on calm days like this, sometimes that's just what they want, is not something so obnoxious. So I do like it for days like today. I fished it in a fair amount of wind the other day and did incredible. So it's not just like it's a, oh, you can only fish it in the calm water or calm weather. It's a really good lure for a lot of conditions. The big problem, I would say, is it is not ideal for brush piles and weeds. It will snag the weeds and stuff. But I'm not fishing in the weeds on this lake, and there's very few brush piles here, so we're pretty much in the clear. Fish is great around these rocks, just kind of bounces off the bottom, doesn't get hung up too much. Speaking of how to fish it, I am trying to keep it as close to the bottom as possible. Like I said, I want it to be clicking against the top of those rocks. That jig head will make a little clicking sound. I know these smallmouth are, I mean, dialed in on crawfish right now, so keeping it low to the bottom like that, kind of mimicking a crawfish in a way, even though it doesn't, you know, it might look more like a fish swimming to us, still clicking and clacking across the bottom. It reminds and triggers an instinct in the bass that's like, ooh, that's food, that's crawfish, go hammer it. So that's the goal, keep it as close to the bottom as possible. Sometimes they'll chase it and follow it, and you know, you don't gotta keep it on the bottom, but that's kind of the approach right now. If I figure something else out, then I'm gonna switch. I don't have my trolling motor cranked too high up, just for, I like thoroughly fishing this area. Since I'm limited on time, I'm not just gonna burn the bank and try to rush it. I know this spot's got fish, and I'm gonna try to pick it apart pretty well. So what I'm trying to do is stay on the edge of these rock piles. This lake is incredibly shallow. At the deepest, I think it might be 25-30 feet. But when it was made, the glaciers deposited rock piles throughout the lake, scattered around, and the smallmouth absolutely loved them. So sometimes they're marked with buoys because they can get, you know, as shallow as 1-2 foot pretty quickly, and other times they're not. They're in a little deeper water, and that's the case with these. We're probably sitting in, I don't have the fish finder, depth finder going, but we're probably sitting in 8 to 10 foot of water, and those rock piles will come up to 4 foot or so, and the smallmouth will just hide in the big chunk rock, and the boulders wait for a lure or prey to come swimming by and attack it. Other times you'll see them cruising, and they're just kind of, you know, swimming in between spots looking for a meal. Sometimes you can get them to bite. Most of the time, if I see them, they've already seen me and they're swimming off, and, you know, I'm not going to get that fish to bite. So I'm not going to talk a lot about what rod and reel setup to fish a swim bait on, because everything that I've got here is borrowed. It's all my father-in-law's, and I'm just using what he has. He doesn't necessarily have the ideal setup for a swim bait, but I caught a lot of fish on it, so, you know, I'm happy to use this. It beats the heck out of hauling my gear all the way up here and having to haul it back home, make room for all that. So I'm thankful just to use this. But I will say, I usually like a little stiffer rod than this one. And then, you know, it doesn't got to be a fast reel either. Your 6-7, probably 7-1 would be ideal. What is this one? What is it? Oh, this is a 7-1. So I do like this reel speed. Man, it's gonna be a hot one today. On the bottom with it. That's what I want. Let's see if we can't get a fish to. Oop, oop. Missed it. Typically when a fish bites, they hammer this thing. I've had a few come swim up and just kind of bite it and swim along with it, but for the most part, you know when you have a bite. Ooh, that sun makes me warm. This might not be the lure. need to switch. Just with the sun and the smooth water, I'm gonna guess they're gonna be a little deeper. I haven't seen any shallow, but it is a little murkier than usual. I say that I can still see 6-7 foot down, but not having any bites yet concerns me. It means I'm probably gonna switch lures here shortly. I know I said I was gonna fish this one, but instead of trying to make the fish eat what they don't want to eat, feed them something that they do want to eat, right? No, I've cast my lure in front of some fish. Alright, last one. And we'll switch them. Just kidding, one more. I'm bad about that. Really, they don't want this. Alright, this is what we're fishing with now. I've got a weight that slides up and down, kind of like a Texas rig. I didn't have any conical weights to put on the top, but that'll work. And just rigged it up where it's Texas style. Texas rigged is what that's called, where you've got the hook buried back in so it's weedless. Not that I need it weedless around here, it just helps keep it from catching on rocks and stuff too. But it's a little smaller profile bait, a little different color, this murkier water. Maybe they're having a hard time seeing it, which it's got a paddle tail, so I wouldn't have thought that, you know, them seeing it would have been the problem. But this, I'll have to fish a little bit slower, which is why I didn't want to fish it in the first place, but it is what it is. We're gonna see if we can't get some bites here. I'm gonna fish it a little bit differently, let it sink all the way to the bottom, which doesn't take long, and I'm literally just gonna hop it up off the bottom, let it sink back down. Maybe not going as far, being a smaller profile, all that stuff will help entice some little more leery fish today. Because that was a big hit if I missed it. That's definitely a rock. It's one thing about this one, it will get hung up more just because we're hopping it and letting it sit, and it'll settle in between some rocks, kind of like it did here. Oh. Okay, I guess breaking off already. Well, that didn't last long. Hopefully I've got more. Looks good. This is the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Big rocks. Boulders is all really what I'd call it. It's like a boulder pile is what I'm looking for. I like these because number one, it gives crawfish place to hide. Then it gives a little fish place to hide. And of course, the big fish come and follow all of those and have a feeding frenzy when they can. So they're just really good bait attractant, and usually they've got a lot of smallmouth on them. Today, I think these conditions are kicking my butt. As I said, I fished here the other day and caught 5 or 6 in about an hour of fishing, but it was a lot windier, a little bit more overcast. Conditions change. It's crazy just how much they change in 2 days. Oh my gosh. Did I really hook? Oh my gosh. Lovely. Ow. Didn't even hook it. I just caught it enough on the windshield. This is gonna be fun. That's what happens when you get your lure caught on the windshield back behind you and good cast. Today is just not my day. One thing after another beats me to the spot. Fish here, you can get a bite, switch lures, immediately get snagged, go off, new lure, and immediately do this. Some days just aren't your day. So while we're at it, here's a master class on getting a bird's nest untangled out of your reel. Only because I've done it 50,000 times. I like to pull it tight, find whichever one is holding it up, and start pulling on that one backwards sometimes. And it's really persistence, finding which one is actually holding it up, because you'll notice that
You pull on one string you think will clear it up and make everything better, only to find out that's not the one actually holding it up. There's more.
Well, it sucks, but I'm gonna have to end it on that. Like I said, I've got some family business that I gotta attend to right now. And I guess lessons learned, number one, look what's behind you before you cast, because I've cast there 100,000 times, didn't have a problem. That time, didn't let the lure get over the windshield, and guess what? It cost me. Other thing, conditions matter. They're just changing, of course, when I've got to go, which I would think would trigger some bites, have the fish move in a little more shallow, but it is what it is. You know, I got out here and fished when I could. You know, that's typical of most people. You don't get to pick and choose your days exactly and, you know, oh, this is the perfect fishing day. Usually doesn't happen. So get out there. You never know. Sometimes you have really good days. Sometimes it's like I had today. There is one bait that always catches fish, and you can find out what that is in the video down below me, and I can't wait to see you there.